Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Aditi Devi Dasi in Pune, India.
Hare Krishna, Aditi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Go ahead, Mataji.
No, Prabhu, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arindax Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nandapriya Nirmada Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, and all the glories to the assembled devotees. This is Megha from Naperville. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Megha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nandapriya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas College Station.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashamati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Priti Dasi from Orlando. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Nandapriya Narmada Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karna Devidasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Karana Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Are there any other devotees who would like to introduce themselves?
Should we start recording, Mataji?
Yeah, sure, Mataji.
We have some more time. Prabhuji will do it.
Hare Krishna, welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji on the call to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 17, Sloka number 33. Before handing over the call to Prabhuji, I would like to ask Aditi Mataji to give a brief introduction about Prabhuji. Mataji, please take over.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna devotee, please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Once again, I'm so fortunate to introduce His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji today, this morning. His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji is a monk, mentor, and spiritual author. He has been educated in electronics and telecommunication engineering from the Government College of Engineering, Pune. He subsequently served as a software engineer in a prominent multinational software corporation. Seeing the prevalent problems of stress, depression, addiction, and overall misdirection, all due to lack of spirituality, he felt inspired to dedicate his life to the cause of sharing the spiritual wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. He travels all over the world, from Australia to America, giving talks on spiritual subjects in universities such as Princeton and Cambridge, and companies such as Intel and Microsoft. Prabhuji is the author of the world's only Gita Daily feature, wherein he writes daily a 300-word inspirational reflection on the verse from the Bhagavad Gita. As of now, he has written over 1,700 Gita meditations that are posted on www.gitadaily.com and are read through daily feeds by thousands from all over the world. He also answers questions by seekers on his site, www.thespiritualscientist.com, where his over 3,500 audio answers and several hundred articles are available. Thank you. Over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, looks like Prabhuji has not yet joined, Mataji.
Mataji will read the verse.
Okay, Mataji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 17, Text 33. Naha asyasti priya kaschin, na priya swaparo apiva, atmatvat sarva bhutanam, sarva bhuta priyo harihi. Synonyms: na, not he, indeed, asya, of the Lord, asti, there is, priya, very dear, kaschit, anyone, na, nor, apriya, not dear, swa, own, para, others, api, even, va, or atmatvat, due to being the soul of the soul, sarva bhutanam, of all living entities, sarva bhuta, to all living entities, priya, very, very dear, Hari, Lord Hari. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He holds no one as very dear and no one as inimical. He has no one for his own relatives and no one is alien to him. He is actually the soul of all living entities. Thus, he is the auspicious friend of all living beings and is very near and dear to all of them. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his second feature is the super soul of all living entities. As one's self is extremely dear, the super self of the self is still more dear. No one can be the enemy of the friendly super self, who is equal to everyone. Relationships of dearness or enmity between the Supreme Lord and the living beings are due to the intervention of the illusory energy. Because the three modes of material nature intervene between the Lord and the living being, these different relationships appear. Actually, the living entity in his pure condition is always very near and dear to the Lord, and the Lord is dear to him. There is no question of partiality or enmity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Prabhuji is not here, so
Yes.
we can either do chanting, introduction, or a bhajan.
Yeah. Prabhuji joined, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, looks like Prabhuji is busy. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for giving your very valuable time and association to us this morning and enlightening us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, please take over the call, Prabhuji.
You have read the translation purport?
Yes, Prabhuji. We already did it.
Okay. Om Jnanatimirandhasya ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Sorry for the delay in joining. Thank you for your patience. Can I also record the class if possible? Thank you. So today we are discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here Lord Shiva is speaking to Mother Parvati and he's telling her about the glorious behavior of. Can you see my screen right now?
Not yet, Prabhuji.
So he's talking about the glorious behavior of Chitraketu and explaining that he's explaining the qualities of the Lord. So I'll take this class in three parts. First I'll talk about the Lord's qualities. Then we'll talk about the devotees' qualities. And then I'll talk about how we can manifest these such qualities. So basically what is being spoken here is that the Lord is the question comes, why the Lord's quality is being talked about first. It is generally, when we function in society, there is some expected behavior, and when people do not behave as expected, now this could be a positive expectation, this could be a negative expectation. That means if somebody is praised, then we generally expect they become happy, they feel grateful, they may become humble. But in general, whenever there is a praise, we expect a particular reaction, a particular range of reactions. If somebody is criticized, we expect they are unhappy, they may become angry, they may become sullen, they may become silent. If somebody is not just criticized but condemned, cursed. If we consider what all could be on the spectrum of negative reactions, the first could be silence. That means that we do something and we expect some praise, but there's no praise, there's only silence. But worse than silence could be criticism. That actually before that we could have something like disapproval. Now disapproval can be just through gestures or it can be through words. When there's disapproval, then there is criticism in the form of formal censure. Censure means it's a public statement of condemnation. But beyond that is curse. Now curse can be a punishment, or it can be even death or destruction. So here the expected reaction was when he's cursed. Generally when somebody is cursed, they'll try to defend themselves, they'll try to counterattack, they will be resentful. But his reaction was completely different. Dhritarashtra remained calm, unflappable, and he responded by saying, I accept what you're saying. And then this was what surprised Parvati. And she remained silent, mostly, and Lord Shiva spoke. And Lord Shiva is giving this philosophical contextualization to explain how to make sense of his extraordinary behavior. So in this verse, so basically the idea is, how can he behave like this? He says curse and then complete calmness. So the action was, he received a curse and his response was total calmness. Na kutaschana vibhyate. So how does this happen? So what is this buffer? So he's saying that he is connected with the Lord. So in general, when do people in an average develop faith in God? Say for example, somebody is very, very talented, they could potentially be very wealthy and powerful, and they give it up all to devote themselves to God. Maybe this God's business is real. Why would anyone give up all this to all the pleasures of this world for something if it were not real? So in the face of a curse where there's a calmness in response, it raises questions, what's going on? So similarly, there's a question. And then here, in explaining the answer, he talks about Nayasyasti priya kaschinna priya swaparopiva. That the Lord, at first part, is talking about the Lord's neutrality. There's no one priya, no apriya. So this is actually similar to Krishna talking about 929, A and B. Samoham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshosti na priya. And then Atmatvat sarvabhutanam sarvabhuta priyo hari. So neutrality is talked about in the first half, but then the affinity, the affection is talked about in the second half. And that's also the mood in 929, C and D. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maite tishu chapyaham. But there's a slight difference over there. Basically, two different attributes of the Lord that we talked about, which that principle is similar. Here, Lord's attributes. So this is in the chapter we are discussing. This is 929. Here, it is first is neutrality. That is similar, but the second is reciprocity. And if you are devoted to him, he reciprocates. But here the theme is talked about is not so much reciprocity, it's almost universal. He says that he is Atmatvat Sarvabhutana. He is within all living beings, the soul of all souls. And Sarvabhuta Priyo Hari. He is dear to everyone. He loves everyone and is dear to everyone. And we say there are people for whom he is not dear. And Prabhupada talked about it in the purport. That's the result of the modes. But the key principle is that the Lord's love is unconditional. Now he loves everyone. Now when we talk about unconditional love, now we could use the word condition. Condition can mean terms. Terms apply. Or conditions. There are conditions to the love, there are terms. Or condition can also mean state. So that means that what are the terms of the agreement? So, and what is the state of the heart? So Krishna's love is unconditional in the sense that there are no terms. So Krishna's love is unconditional. But state matters. What do I mean by that? If you consider, say, the example of a city and say there is a sun above. Now, the sun is giving rays. The sun gives rays, it's universal. It is unconditional. The sun gives rays to everyone. But if the person may be a Shudra or a Vaishya, a person may be wealthy or poor, they will all get the sun. But if somebody goes below the earth and they are in a cellar, underground cellar, then they won't get any sunlight. There will be no sunlight here. It's not because the sun is not giving light, it is because the person has chosen to go far away. So the sun's giving of light is unconditional. That means you may be a good person, you may be a bad person, you still get sunlight. But if the person is underground, the state is that they are underground, here the physical state is being talked about, then they will not get the sun. So similarly, while Krishna's love is unconditional, Sarvabhuta Priyo Hari, but if we are like the person in the underground cellar, that means if we are in one sense spiritually underground. Underground means our spiritual awareness is buried deep inside. It's covered by the modes. Then what may happen is that we may not feel Krishna's love. We may not experience Krishna's love at all. Tribhir gunamayair bhavair ebhi sarvamidam jagat mohitam na vijanati mamebhya paramopeyam naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrta. Krishna talks about in 7:13, he talks about in 7:25. Same thing, that he is above everything. He is not an illusion. But people can be subject to illusion due to the effect of where they are. So it's not that Krishna is not offering love. Krishna is the super soul in everyone's heart. Krishna is offering love to everyone. But depending on where a person is at, say for example, this is the soul, this is the super soul. So now Krishna is there with every soul, but see, God is always close to us, but we are often far from God. God is always close to us, but we are often far from God. How does this happen that we are far from God? Because our heart is turned away. Bahir Mukha. So Krishna is close to us, but when we are looking away from Krishna, so we are looking this way, we are Bahir Mukha. And thus, no matter how far we may look, we just don't see Krishna anywhere. This is our state. But for one who has turned toward the Lord, something different happens. So first, the quality of the Lord is described. His love is unconditional. He is neutral in one sense. So what is the neutrality? Neutrality is he doesn't really care where we have come from, what our background is. He is there, the Paramatma in everyone's heart. His affinity for everyone. But everyone may not feel his affinity. For those, however, who do become devoted to him, then basically we'll consider this is a devotee. Here we're talking about a very great devotee, and if I consider this to be Krishna, it's all about it. Then what happens is such a soul becomes a nimitta, an instrument for Krishna, and thus that devotee manifests qualities similar to Krishna. So Krishna is, this is 529, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He is the well-wisher of everyone. And what are the characters of the devotee? Krishna says in 12:13, Adveshta sarvabhutana maitrah karunaevacha. So exactly same qualities are described. No envy towards anyone, maitrah karunaevacha. That such a person is very dear to Krishna. So the same qualities that Krishna has are manifest through a devotee. And thus, Prabhupada would say that Krishna is your ever well wisher, and as a servant of Krishna, I also am your ever well wisher. This way, a devotee manifests those extraordinary qualities which are actually present in Krishna. And that is what is being manifested by Chitraketu. So, Chitraketu is here, and Chitraketu's extraordinary behavior we're trying to understand. How or why is he behaving like this? Because Narayana Para Sarve. So in this way, his instructions are going around in a series. It comes back to symmetry. The starting point was that the devotees of Narayana are very special, that they are undisturbed. And then how does the connection with Narayana help them to stay undisturbed? That is described. So what exactly happens? How does a devotee stay undisturbed? That is, in life there are ups and downs. And for some people, those ups and downs lead to escalated ups and downs. A small problem, it leads to a big reaction for them. But for others, there are outer ups and downs, and internally they are steady. They are almost undisturbed by the ups and downs. Like that. So how does this difference occur? This difference, okay, so this is this physical or external level, there is danger, and then we are talking about the internal level. What is happening? Internal level, there are different reactions among different people, and this internal level, the reactions are different because the devotee, that means if somebody yells at a devotee, somebody provokes a devotee, somebody angers a devotee, the devotee does not get angry, the devotee does not retaliate as is described over here. He does not retaliate because he is connected with, he or she is connected with Krishna, they are absorbed in Krishna. So basically, in the internal, beyond there is a duality is there in the internal, but there is a stability beyond duality. Just like when a wave comes, the wave will cause the boat to move up and down, but the wave will not cause the land to move up and down, no matter how big the wave is. The land will stay steady because the land is much bigger, the land is much stabler. So we are situated internally on that steady land. We are situated there, we are fully happy. We are fully satisfied, we are fully steady. So now when we talk about the stability beyond duality, what does it actually mean? How does a devotee maintain the stability? And how will a devotee manifest that? So let's look at another example which we will compare with the Yudhishthir and now here the Chitraketu. So now if we look at the incidents that are described in scripture, in the case of Chitraketu, he is a good person. He is with other good people. And those other good people are also devotees. I mean, other good people are Lord Shiva is a great devotee, Parvati is a great devotee. And yet, this terrible thing happens. This terrible thing is that he gets cursed. So sometimes we say that being in association is the means to stay safe, and that is true. But ultimately, the safety is not necessarily in material safety. Safety will be basically that no matter what happens, we will be moving closer and closer to Krishna. That never changes. So here the key principle where we are functioning in life, Yudhishthira, if I compare, what happened to him? Now we could say there was a slight mistake on his part. You can even question whether it was a mistake or not. But Yudhishthira Maharaj is also called as Ajat Shatru. Shatru means one who has no enemy. So we will see how was Yudhishthira Maharaj's reaction toward Dhritarashtra. Now Dhritarashtra did not have the power to curse Yudhishthira. Literally, he did not have mystical powers by which he could curse. But Dhritarashtra did subject not subject to actually anyone being able to threaten him. So what happened for Dhritarashtra was that he became a puppet in the hands of Duryodhana, and he subjected Yudhishthira to terrible Yudhishthira and his family terrible suffering. And yet at the end of it, and Duryodhana was killed, Yudhishthira saw that Dhritarashtra still had malevolence. Dhritarashtra actually tried to kill Bhima. Krishna intervened and saved him. It was quite an extraordinary incident where what Dhritarashtra did. See, there is generally you consider Dhritarashtra to be the passive villain. Passive villain, or it's more like a enabler. Enabler means that somebody is doing bad things and that person knowingly or unknowingly, they enable that person to do bad things. But Dhritarashtra actually tried to kill Bhima. So basically what had happened, we know, say this is the Kurukshetra battlefield. And this is where the war had happened. And now, let's say here is Hastinapur, where Sanjay and Dhritarashtra are sitting. So Dhritarashtra is here, Sanjay is here. And Sanjay is narrating the Bhagavad Gita to him, narrating the story of the Mahabharata. So after the war ended, the Pandavas came to see Dhritarashtra. And one says, why did they have to see Dhritarashtra? They had this fear. So what was the fear? They didn't have fear of Dhritarashtra, but they had fear of Gandhari. Prabhupada, because Gandhari had exhibited such extraordinary chastity to her husband, she had gained great power by that. So generally, if a person tolerates difficulties, tolerates painful situations, that tolerance strengthens the inner muscles. So the Pandavas, they were afraid of, in one sense, they were apprehensive of Gandhari's curse. Gandhari had already shown her capacity for mystical powers when she had made Duryodhana almost invincible. And Bhima had to use some unusual means to actually break Duryodhana's thigh and thereby defeat him. They knew Gandhari was very powerful. So they came to pacify Gandhari and of course to pacify Dhritarashtra. So now Gandhari was so angry that she opened her eyes for the first time, or the second time now after her wedding. Previously when she had opened her eyes, it was to remove the strap on her eyes, that was to make Duryodhana very powerful. So when Gandhari again removed her blindfold, when she removed her blindfold, the cloth on her eyes, the rays of fire, fiery rays came out and they scorched Bhima and the Pandavas. When Bhima was shaken by fear, instinctive fear, but it was still fear. So this was what she had done. But Krishna immediately told her that, don't be angry with the Pandavas. You know the truth. It is that Duryodhana has been killed by his own deeds. What will you gain by punishing the Pandavas for what were the deeds of your own son? Gandhari fell silent. And Dhritarashtra acted as if he was kind and helpful. And he said that I want to embrace all of you. I'm in such grief, I want to embrace you. And when he said, I want to embrace you, at that time, he called Bhima forward and he embraced Bhima. Sorry, somehow he embraced Bhima, and in embracing Bhima, he crushed Bhima. Completely he crushed him. But he didn't crush Bhima because Krishna intervened. Krishna intervened and brought an effigy. Effigy of Bhima, and that was crushed. So my point was, while Yudhishthira observed that Dhritarashtra throughout his life had done terrible things to at least allowed terrible things to happen to the Pandavas. And now finally, he had himself done a terrible thing. So he could easily have hit back. And yet he did not. In one sense, the atrocities of the Pandavas, they began with the poisoning of Bhima and they ended with the crushing of Bhima. Of course, the first failed, the last also failed. When we care for someone, if we are attacked, we feel threatened. But if somebody dear to us is attacked, we feel even more threatened. We feel even more enraged. So although Bhima was far more powerful than Yudhishthira physically, Yudhishthira felt a sense of responsibility. And when Bhima was attacked, he could have become vengeful. But he did not become vengeful. Why is that? Because he was Ajata Shatru. He was Suhridam Sarvabhutana. Now what was his reasoning? That will lead us to our concluding point at how can we actually manifest such qualities? Generally speaking, let me explain this reasoning over here. So now Ajat Shatru does not mean that you never take action against anyone. But Ajat Shatru had still fought against Duryodhana. And they had fought and the war became quite bitter and vehement. They fought till they won. So Bhima had to be killed. Duryodhana had to be killed. But why not do the same thing to Dhritarashtra? Then you could say he was blind and he's powerless. But then, okay, he doesn't deserve to be killed. But he did consent to all this. So maybe he could have put him in house arrest. But he actually gave him royal honor. So generally, wrongdoer, you want to have that wrongdoer punished. But here, what is the wrongdoer is doing? He's privileged. He's given special and powerful favor. Why is that? What exactly is going on over here? The key is that Yudhishthir, being Ajatashatru, felt that I should not be vengeful. He felt that whatever has happened, he is my elder and it is my duty to serve him, to take care of him. So he did not retaliate over here. Leave alone retaliate, he respected. So why was the wrongdoer respected? Because that is manifesting his Vaishnava qualities, his exalted devotional qualities. A Kshatriya, he had to fight to maintain dharma in society. With the Pandavas, when they fought, they were fighting. Society has to have dharma in society. And if dharma is to be there in society, that means there has to be at least the ruler can't be a person who is adharmic. So in one sense, if you consider the Pandavas, if you consider Yudhishthir, to do his duty to his society, he had to fight and remove an adharmic ruler. And then he himself was Dharmaraj, so he was established as a ruler. Fight to remove adharmic ruler. So he fought. It was not just to settle scores. If you did this to me, therefore I am going to fight against you and punish you. If that had been the case, they would have never sought peace also. They would offer peace on extremely accommodating terms. But now, having done that, having secured the interest of the elder of his family, this he considered to be his first duty was having secured the safety of his citizens. So he considered that to be his first duty, but then he considered his duty to his elders to be second duty, he said. And therefore, let me serve them. Let me take care of you, Dhritarashtra. Now, Bhima just did not agree to this. Like I said, Bhima was naturally confrontational and he had been targeted by 2 assassination attempts. And he could not bear to see how Dhritarashtra was being honored so much. And yet he accepted it because Yudhishthir did it. So what was Yudhishthir's mood? That just because somebody else has given up their dharma, does not mean I should give up my dharma. I should continue doing my dharma. So much so that when Yudhishthir comes to know that Dhritarashtra has departed from the kingdom, at that time, so it will be, so he wanted to make sure that just because somebody else is doing the dharma doesn't mean I have to give up doing my dharma. And similarly, here Yudhishthir, Chitraketu, because his primary relationship is with the Lord. So okay, I've been cursed. This is a great soul. Parvati is a great soul. And even if it's her mistake, even through her mistake, Krishna's plan can work. So let me continue my service. Let me accept whatever is the plan of the Lord. So Chitraketu did not at this stage have royal administrative duties. He did not have worries that there is a demon who is going to take over his kingdom and lead his citizens down to adharma. He said that when those worldly concerns were not there, his primary concern was, how can I stay connected with Krishna? So for all of us, when we maintain our inner connection with Krishna, then we get the guidance of how to respond appropriately. So I'll conclude with an example about regarding how to manifest these qualities. That Prabhupada was also Ajatashatru. So Prabhupada was also Ajatashatru, consider Srila Prabhupada, he fought against predators. Predators here were Mr. and then Mrs. N. They tried to, this we're talking about the Juhu land. They were the owners of the land and they took money and they didn't want to give the land deeds. And Prabhupada said, we'll have to go over my dead body before they can steal Krishna's temple from him. And yet, they didn't. When Mr. N passed away, Mrs. N initially tried to fight on. She actually escalated the battle. Some of her advisors, they said, these guys are out upstairs, we just evict them. But then we tried to have them demolished, have things demolished and evicted. Things backfired. When things backfired, she came to meet Srila Prabhupada and she sought forgiveness. And she said that. So Prabhupada said, you're just like my daughter. I'll take care of you. So Prabhupada's focus was on his service to Krishna. And somebody was obstructing in the service to Krishna, Prabhupada was ready to fight. But if there was no threat, then Prabhupada, it's almost like Prabhupada overlooked everything that they had done in the past and accepted them. So a devotee is the concluding point. How do we manifest this such forgiving, kind, steady response? So a devotee is primary connection with Krishna. And then, based on that, however the other person responds, we reciprocate, not by you did this to me, so I'll do this to you. Rather, I want to serve Krishna, and how can I respond to this person's actions so that my service to Krishna goes on? When we keep that mood in mind, then we'll find Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamamapayamate. Then Pandit Krishna says that I will give you the intelligence by which you can come to me. So, in this way, a devotee, by holding on to Krishna, can resist the influence of the three modes which drag a person down. So, I'll summarize. I talked about three things. First point was that how I started by actually, you could say, 0.0 if I want to say. Extraordinary responses there. That raises how. So Chitraketu is being unflappable despite being cursed, led to the question, how is he so unflappable? In connection with that, the Lord's qualities are talked about. So what are his qualities? He is impartial, he is universal, he is neutral. But at the same time, neutrality is there. Affinity, affection also is there. He is kind to everyone. He wants the good of everyone. So I discussed the two meanings of the word. How Krishna's love is it unconditional? Yes and no. Based on two meanings of the word condition, terms and state. The sun does not set any terms on giving light to anyone, but whether a person gets the light or not depends on their state. If they are underground, they won't get it. And then I discussed what happens to a devotee. The Lord is above. The devotee manifests the Lord's qualities. 5.29 is Srudam Sarvabhutana. 12.30 is Adveshta Sarvabhutana. So, godly qualities in this way manifest in a devotee. And how these godly qualities manifest? How can we make them manifest? I discussed the example of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Let's take this point. He focused primarily on his service to Krishna, and based on that service to Krishna, service focus, he responded. So when his service to Krishna as a Raja, by establishing Raja Dharma, was threatened, he had to fight a war. But when Dhritarashtra was no threat, Yudhishthira decided, I am not going to retaliate against him, I'm not going to hurt him, I'm going to continue to respect him. Similarly, here Chitraketu could have retaliated against Parvati, but he's not retaliating because he's fixed in his higher purpose, which is to stay connected with Krishna and keep moving forever towards Krishna. So similarly, if we keep Krishna, our relationship with Krishna the foremost, then how to respond in various situations, whether to fight, or to forgive, or to neglect, or to just forget and move on, we will get the right guidance by the Dhamma Buddhi Yoga. We discuss also how Prabhupada also dealt with Mr. and Mrs. N, especially Mrs. N, how Prabhupada dealt with her. That illustrates the same principle of how we can function in the world in a mood of service to Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful class. I think Anuradha Mataji is having a question. Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam goes to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I don't know if I missed out. Maybe you have mentioned it, but somehow, like when you were saying that there will be externals, but the internal is like, it's peaceful and stable. Like you gave the example of land. How does a sadhaka go there? Maybe you mentioned and I did not catch it, Prabhu. So will you please explain?
Okay. The point I was making is that to the extent we are connected with Krishna, so our consciousness is executed on the land. Krishna is the ultimate land. And to the extent we are connected with Krishna, sheltered in Krishna, and how we are sheltered in Krishna? By having a service attitude toward Krishna. That's how the externals will not affect the internals. Say, if we're just walking along and somebody yells at us, or somebody cuts us, our normal reaction could be that we want to yell back at that person. But say, if we are traveling with someone, and that person is the person to whom we are sharing Krishna Bhakti, and we are aware that my behavior is going to attract or alienate this person, then in front of that person, that awareness of our duty toward that person will make us ensure that that we don't overreact. Like some people, when they get angry, they may speak some cuss words, some curse words, some swear words. But say if they are with a child, in front of children, they will not speak those words. Why? Because they are conscious of their duty toward the children. So similarly, if we stay conscious of our service attitude toward Krishna, we won't be disturbed.
So Prabhuji, so you said the more we are connected, the better is, the internals gets more stabilized, and
Yes.
that connection is the more we serve, right? With the service attitude.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Kumar Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, my question from today's class, Prabhu. So my understanding, Prabhu, the mind takes both the dual roles of material stand and the devotion stand when it comes to any activity or service to Krishna. And I hear from your classes and other classes that it's only through the intelligence we kind of get the mind to take the devotion stand against the material stand, Prabhu. So, but what I see from my experience is even the intelligence seems to more play in favor of material stand than in playing favor of devotion stand, Prabhu. So I just wanted to hear from you as to what happens there, that the intelligence also seems to be playing kind of dual roles. Is there any way through which we can train or practice so that the intelligence takes the devotion stand instead of working for the material stand? Hare Krishna.
It's a tough question. a tough situation to deal with, basically. Now we don't have to see. Sometimes we think of this, say, devotional and material as opposites. It can be, but it doesn't have to be opposite that way. It is devotion at one end. Are they opposites? Well, they can certainly be opposites. But they don't have to always be opposites, because it all depends. Like I think in the previous session I mentioned, when Prabhupada was asked, when the Rath cart fell, completely collapsed because they had made a very heavy cart. The devotees were asked that. They would ask Prabhupada, did the Rath cart collapse because of our poor devotion? Prabhupada said, no, it collapsed because of your poor engineering. Now, poor engineering, that's clearly you could say a material explanation. But why did Prabhupada emphasize the material explanation over there? Because that material explanation was favorable for the service. Isn't it? Okay, if you want to fix that, then how do you fix it? You have to look for a material cause. So rather than thinking of it in devotional explanation or material explanation, you could put it more in terms of, the resentful attitude or the resourceful attitude. Resentful means, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Resourceful is, okay, now this has happened. What can I do about it? Now that this has happened, Krishna, how can I serve you in this situation? So, and sometimes being resourceful means overlooking the material. And sometimes resourceful can mean looking over the material, looking at it carefully to figure it out. Okay. It can overlooking the material. So, but sometimes can be looking over. Looking over means carefully looking at it. Say, for example, we are hearing some devotees speak. Now, if some devotees say they are from a particular part of the world where they have a particular accent, and that accent makes it a little difficult to understand for us, then but still if they are senior devotees, we will hear from them and we will try to understand as much as we can. So, for example, say this problem is difficult to understand a speaker. Suppose that's the situation. And that is because of their accent. Now, when that happens, we just overlook it. This devotee, this is just a different background, different culture. Still, this devotee is serving Krishna. And that Gangam Bhusam Nidipeda Pankai, that how in the Ganga, if there are some bubbles or some dirt, we overlook it. Overlook it. But if I find it difficult to hear a speaker because of a buggy sound system, that time should we just overlook, it's all spiritual, whether I hear or not, whatever sound is going to purify me. Well, no, at that time you look over it. What can you do to fix it? So the point is, are we having a problem-centered approach, a resentful approach? Why is this happening to me? Or a solution-centered approach? That is a resourceful approach. What can I do about it? That's why I said it's not. So rather than thinking my mind goes toward the material solution or this solution, that solution, just focus on the point that whether my mind goes towards the material explanation or devotional explanation, and separating like that. Is my mind focusing on the problem itself, or is the mind obsessing over the problem? Is the mind looking for a solution, or am I looking for a solution? So as long as we are looking for a way ahead, then that's perfectly fine. Then we can look for a material thing or a spiritual thing, whatever it is. Does it answer your question?
Yes. Prabhu, just one extension, Prabhu, if you don't mind. So this I got, Prabhu. Looks like there is a gap inside me. But the other aspect also, what I was thinking, Prabhu, in terms of making decisions, Prabhu, we know that this is the right way of making a decision according to the Shastra, right, on the devotional side of it. But still the intelligence is kind of, doing the mind is negotiating. The negotiation goes there between the duality of the mind. In that point of view, Prabhu, I was thinking the intelligence seemed to be kind of arguing more in favor of the material side of the argument than on the right decision, though we are aware of it, that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think that tendency is there. That's why sometimes when we do some reasoning, so every action has a reason, even if the reason is not reasonable. So what we need to do is, maybe at that time, every action, even wrong action can say, every wrong action is driven by a reason. So there is some kind of reason. Say, when I yell at someone, reason that person did like that. We have a reason for that. But even if the reason is not reasonable, yeah, that person spoke like that, but did not mean you have to get down to that same level. Couldn't you have maintained your dignity? Couldn't you have maintained your composure? So rather than saying that the intelligence goes in a particular direction, the mind is too powerful, okay, this is the reason that the mind gave at that time. Could I have countered the reason at that time? What could I have thought to counter the reason? So if we even do that kind of homework afterwards, we may not be able to counter the reason immediately, we may not be able to come up with the reason immediately, but if we do that, we are showing Krishna that we don't want to succumb to that kind of reasoning. Then Krishna will guide us. And especially if there are some typical kind of counterproductive reasoning that we succumb to, then it is good to keep them in mind and to write the response to write the responses to them and keep those responses readily available for us. So we could have some quotes on anger, quotes on temptation, how to deal with temptation or whatever, and that way we can get our intelligence, give our intelligence some aid in moving toward the right direction.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavad.
Thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Hare Krishna. Thanks, Prabhuji, for coming on the call and giving us your valuable association. Very nice class, Prabhuji. As always, very instructive with all your references. So we are getting different perspective every time when you come. Thank you for that, Prabhuji. Devotees, let's pay our obeisances to Prabhuji. Vancha kalpadrupa
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.